What's going on, folks? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the debut album by the rock band New Year's Day, which these guys kind of remind me of like a female version of like a punk band like Fall Out Boy. They definitely kind of have that vibe about it. But basically, New Year's Day came up on the website MySpace. They dropped a bunch of songs on there, and they eventually put out an EP in 2006 that's kind of difficult to find. I was going originally to review that project, but it's just not on YouTube, and I wanted to purchase it on eBay, and I couldn't find it on there, and you can't find it digitally on Amazon, so I really don't know where to go about getting like the debut 2006 EP of New Year's Day. It's called Razor, but then even then, the name of the album is kind of difficult because in some cases it's self-titled called New Year's Day. In other senses, it's called Razor. But the thing about it, when you look up New Year's Day, it thinks you're talking about the day New Year's Day, January 1st. So it just makes it very difficult to kind of signify and differentiate the concept of trying to find that project. I think I don't know. I like the concept of the album being good because I wonder about it because I did like this project, but it's just kind of I think maybe it should have had a different name to make it easier to find. And this is really kind of a rare item, and then the band's name contributes to the fact that it makes it difficult to find. So that's just kind of the concept. You look it up on Google or Bing or Yahoo, and it's just kind of a difficult find, but it just wants to lead you to New Year's Day, the day. There were some singles that carried on from that project over to this one, and this is definitely kind of a hit project. Like I said, it reminds me of like a female version of Fall Out Boy, which they almost did sign to Fall Out Boy's label, Pete Wentz's label, back around that time. And this is just kind of some stuff they wound up being circulated for a little while on MTVU, which is a subsidiary of MTV. So it's some good stuff. I found out about this band through the fact that they went on tour with Blood on the Dance Floor, who I've been reviewing recently, and I've looked up some of their biography, and it said they were on tour with New Year's Day. I said, that's interesting. Who are they? And then I fucked with them. That's kind of the thing. So this is a pretty rock solid project. It is a little bit patchy, but ultimately I like most of the vibes that I kind of got from it, and it definitely has some good energy there. So, but I'll go ahead and talk about the single. So the first single was Ready Aim Misfire, and this one, both of these songs, both I Was Right and Ready Aim Misfire are really hooky. They just really feel like punk related and that type of stuff. Just kind of give off like a nice kind of Good Charlotte, Blink 182, and Fall Out Boy kind of energy, but particularly Ready Aim Misfire just kind of reminds me of a song that you would listen to just right as the night's getting ready to get started. Where I feel like I Was Right is kind of more of a song in the afternoon where you listen to kind of in the vehicle at 2:30, 3:30, 4:30, right as you're either just got off work or just kind of in the day, kind of mid evening or early evening, late afternoon kind of commute. I feel like Ready Aim Misfire is a little bit more where not so much a work song, but just kind of more about stepping out and kind of getting ready to get started, and maybe not quite at the night venue, but just kind of the standard kind of fare about getting ready to go out for the night and get excited. This one has like a not. This one has a pretty infectious kind of energy about it, and it's just kind of charming in a lot of ways. It is a nice one. Like both of these are pretty I mean, I feel like these hooks are pretty commercial ready. It's just kind of the fact that they just don't quite break even as hardcore as like a song like Sugar We're Going Down or Dance Dance by Fall Out Boy or something like that. But they are very similar, and they're for underground music. This is actually rather hooky. It's just kind of because this album is kind of a rare item in itself. Also because the label that this album was on went bankrupt. It's kind of like some of this New Year's Day stuff. I mean, you get the idea here that New Year's Day is kind of a hot ticket in terms of being able to find their music. But I do feel like, despite the fact that they're underground, they do have some kind of pretty rock solid commercial ready songs in a lot of ways that almost kind of break even. It's just too bad they didn't get more attention. But the second single is I Was Right, and this is definitely, like I said, this is one that reminds me of just 2:30, 3:30 p.m., just maybe running errands, getting lunch, just the daytime commute kind of thing. Just kind of just got off work, just still in the day kind of energy, and it just really reminds me of something that like MGK would do nowadays, or Blink 182, or Good Charlotte, stuff like that. Just kind of has that same version. It's just the fact that Ash Costello, who's the lead singer of New Year's Day is kind of, she's Ash Costello being female just kind of gives like a female punk version of like the stuff that you'd hear from a typical punk artist. But it's just interesting just because I can't think of a terrible amount of punk musicians that happen to be female in that sort of sense. I mean, maybe the band members might be female, but like Paramore, for example, that's more of an emo band. It's not quite as punk. So that's just kind of the thing. But Ash Costello kind of reminds me of Hayley Williams in some ways, just not quite as commercial, but definitely in the same vein, I would have to say, relatively. So I do kind of feel like I'm gonna go ahead and recommend the 6 songs out of 11 I recommend. So those 6 songs would be "I Was Right," "Ready, Aim, Misfire," "Part-Time Lover," "My Sweet Unvalentine," "You'll Only Make It Worse," and "Saying Goodbye." So I feel like 2 songs that are really ready for like stepping out and being at a night venue and kind of listening to music and getting some food while at some place for the night and that type of stuff would definitely be "Saying Goodbye" and "My Sweet Unvalentine." I mean, I really like the guitar riffs and the more manic energy of "My Sweet Unvalentine," but I do feel like that energy is kind of carried over to "Saying Goodbye" also, which is kind of like a nice high mid tempo track. Definitely both of these kind of have like a almost mid kind of dance energy towards them that just kind of have some manic kind of feels towards them. So both of these are good night venue songs. If you're looking for another getting ready to get started for the night kind of feel, like "Ready, Aim, Misfire," there is another one like that, which is basically, yeah, another song that's like "Ready, Aim, Misfire" is "You'll Only Make It Worse," which this one is kind of more drums for the most part in the verses than some of these other ones like "My Sweet Unvalentine" or "Saying Goodbye." But I do kind of feel like the energy just kind of reminds me of another kind of getting kind of excited. You're kind of getting goosebumps, getting butterflies, that type of stuff. Maybe getting ready. I mean, some of these songs just have some good excitement energy about them. And I feel like "Ready, Aim, Misfire" and "You'll Only Make It Worse" are kind of 2 songs that go along with that kind of vibe. And then another song that's kind of for like the midday kind of commute, like "I Was Right," would be "Part-Time Lover." Both of these kind of have that kind of same 3 o'clock in the afternoon kind of energy, just running errands, sending out mail, kind of paying bills, that type of stuff, getting food, getting lunch, that sort of thing. It just kind of has that kind of same energy towards it. I just feel like some of these just have some nice feels towards it. But to talk about some of the songs I didn't enjoy, like there's a couple songs on here that are kind of for like road trip kind of energy, like "Sunrise Sunset" and "Temecula Sunrise," but I didn't quite connect with like the instrumentation of them. Maybe it's just they were a little bit more peppy than I would have wanted, but it just kind of feels like I like most of the energy of this project, but there are some productions on here that I didn't quite vibe and gravitate to as much, and these are a couple of those ones that I didn't. I mean, they do have the good energy if you just happen to really be kind of in like a sunrise. It's like the song says, "Sunrise Sunset." It's just kind of either in the early morning or the mid evening, something like that. But I just didn't like. I feel like the instrumentation on those songs could have been better. It just felt like a little bit too dreary and kind of like a positive sense. I didn't really appreciate that kind of energy. But "Razor" was one that I would have liked if it had kept the kind of melancholy, kind of piano like production at the beginning of the song, but it just changed the instrumentation on it. I didn't like what wound up with it, but that one kind of gave me almost Evanescence vibes. And then "Brilliant Lies" was kind of like a makeshift kind of song. This one was really dreary, just kind of like a almost ballad-esque kind of song that I just didn't appreciate as much. So just for some of these that just "My Dear" was kind of another kind of odd one that or awkward one for me. I just didn't vibe with the energy. So just were some ones that kind of had like different contexts. I felt like some of these ones that they had some jolts of energy that got me excited, like "My Sweet Unvalentine" and "My Sweet Unvalentine" and "You'll Only Make It Worse," "Ready, Aim, Misfire," "I Was Right." I mean, there are some ones that do kind of have like a lot of electricity to them, and they definitely kind of give off like getting ready to get started. But you'll notice that there's not an overt amount of like club type tracks or overall night venue kind of party type tracks. I mean, it has some good energy for like a certain sense, but it does not quite reach the extreme of having like, I mean, it does have some of those night venue songs, but it's just not to the extremity of like really being widespread with it. I think it's kind of focused on more of like a balanced kind of regular commute that assumes that you've got more things going on than just bar life and kind of nightlife, which I would have liked a few more songs, especially a single that would have been at the venue and kind of had like some real dance and rave kind of energy. But for what it is, I mean, this is kind of a moody kind of punk project, but it does do a good job of infectious and charming kind of energy, but it's just not like executed in the context of being a good conduit for like making you want to like wholesomely kind of getting you dancing and that type of stuff. I definitely feel like there needed to be some dance cuts on here. And a lot of this album, to talk about the lyrics, kind of deals with heartbreak and some of these various things. So if like the energy I'm saying about this album doesn't match up with the lyrics that you're listening to, I mean, a lot of this is dealing with romance and some of that type of stuff, but it is kind of got some energy for stepping out and kind of dancing and being a flirt in some of those type moments. But it's just kind of the context that it's just not a full bred album for just like rivetous kind of riotous kind of energy, and that's this kind of thing. It's workaday. I definitely feel like for an underground album, it's surprising how workaday this project kind of is, which is just kind of the context about it. But um, so I'm gonna give this album, me liking 6 songs out of 11. I'm gonna give this album a 6 out of 10. I feel like that's pretty rock solid. I think basically I connected with both the singles, and there were some extra moments on here, but just based upon some of the complaints that I had, there's like some awkward kind of distorted energy and just some productions I didn't, or some moods I didn't quite synchronize with. Is kind of the concept. So that's just kind of the thing. But the social score, I'm going to go ahead and give a 6.5 out of 10 because there are some good moments on here for that, but it just does not have like a full bred kind of energy in terms of like the most riotous time. This is not really like a whole month long kind of weekend album. It's just kind of something that you have in your car for like 3 or 4 weeks and then you move on to your next CD or something like that. It's relatively kind of happens. It just doesn't have the lastability or the replayability. I mean, it does have some good songs, but a lot of this just comes off as more you just kind of pick and choose like playlist music and just vibe with some of it more so than this actually being in your tape deck for a long time. It's just it's more short lived. So I give it a 6.5 just because the songs that are fun, but it just does not have like the replayability factor quite as large. So in terms of the future, New Year's Day has been dropping more music. They have a bunch of projects, including a Japan only album and some EPs. Like I said, I would really like to review their 2006 EP if I could get a hold of it. It's not on YouTube, so it's just kind of the information about this band as a whole is kind of trite, and just with their name being New Year's Day, it makes it difficult to wholesomely learn about them. That's just kind of the thing. There is some more stuff I'm going to review by them down the road, so.